making it feel like a big old hug. And those horses, as you can see, are not afraid at all. Now, some people would go, well, you should see my horse. When I get out there with that stick, my horse would go crazy. Well, most of our horses did too, because we had to prove to them that we are friendly. Once they understand it, it's over. So now, that's a very basic friendly game. How can we get a little bit more advanced? As you go up the levels, the idea is to expand your repertoire of things that you can do, or in this case, get your horse used to more and more stimulus. So a lot of horses that are spooky and skeptical, when you get to higher levels of the friendly game, all of that stuff goes away. Because instead of being reactive to sudden noises and movements, they start to understand that there's nothing to be worried about. And what I want you to notice is the body language for everybody that's doing this. They're really relaxed. Because you're going to see in the next couple of games that they're no longer relaxed, standing here going, oh, don't worry about it. It's now like, okay, I'm going to move you. And so their energy is very different. Very good. Right, so that's the friendly game. Now, the next game, we call it the porcupine game because it's teaching a horse to move away from steady pressure, whether it's your fingertips or your stick or your spur or your rein. These are all steady pressure that a horse has to learn how to yield away from, to not push against it, to not brace against it, but to softly move off the pressure. So they're going to do basic porcupine game, asking the horse to move off the pressure of the halter, to move their hindquarters, to move their front end, even things like picking up their feet. You can apply steady pressure to the chestnut on their inside leg and pick up the foot, which you'll see in a minute. So being able to move your horse around like this becomes really important, even for everyday basics like grooming, saddling, trimming their feet, loading them into trailers. You want your horse to be maneuverable and not fight against the pressure, but learn how to yield from the pressure and follow the feel. So you can see when they pick up a horse's feet, they're squeezing the chestnut just above the knee. And on the back, they squeeze the cap of the hock. When you do that, it causes the horse to shift his weight and pick up his own foot. What a lot of people do is they grab the tendons and then the horse puts more weight on that and you struggle and try to pick it up. But Pat's got all these wonderful ways of showing us how to get horses to act more like a partner, pick up their foot for you. And that, believe it or not, is in level 1. So now, how can we get a little bit more advanced? What can we do with the porcupine game, following the field to be more advanced? I wonder if anybody can use more speed. Look at Lisa here. She's teaching her horse to spin. I wonder if anybody can lead their horse by a leg or by the tail. So I remember when I first started studying Pat's program back in 1989. It was a year before he came back and did another clinic in Australia where I was living. And I could do all the 7 games and I was very proud of myself. And then he said, so what else can you do with those games? And I was like, huh? And he said, yeah, use some imagination. I'm like, imagination? What is that with horses? And he said, well, have you ever tried leading your horse by the tail? I was like, no. Actually, it had never occurred to me to do that. What about leading him by the leg, by the ear, by the mane? It's like, I never ever thought of that. Why would you do that? Because you're building your communication to a very sophisticated level. And at that time, I was still at my dressage barn. And I remember the day that I got my horse leading backwards by the tail, and I was ecstatic, because I just never believed I could do something like that. And as everyone would always ask me, what's that got to do with dressage? What's that got to do with dressage? And I just got sick of telling them, well, it's about communication and your relationship and confidence and all that kind of thing. Finally, I said, I don't care. This is cool. How many people can have enough trust and relationship with their horse to be able to teach them to lead by the tail? And guess what it also teaches you as a horseman is to have a lot of feel and sensitivity and become a very good teacher of horses. Very nice. All right, let's have a look at game number 3. Game number 3 now is the opposite of game number 2 because it's instead of moving your horse by touching him, you're going to move your horse by suggestion. So you're going to touch the air around your horse and influence him rather than touching the hair. So let's have a look at the same things again. They're going to move the front end, move the back end, move the horse backwards. When you can get a horse to move by suggestion, it's almost like constructive spooking, but you don't want the horse to be spooked. But you need to be able to move horses around without actually touching them, sometimes just to be safe, and other times because it's going to teach them to be more perceptive to cues from outside of their personal space. You'll see later on when we do the other games how they might wave a stick in that space and get them to head off in a circle or to go sideways. Very good. I love it. Once I started to really learn about this thing and I got to the point where I could look at my horse's hindquarters and point to it, and my horse would move his hindquarters away, it just felt magical. But this is all about having a language and control and communication with your horse. From here, we're going to build to a lot more. So, that's the first 3 primary games: friendly, porcupine, and driving. Now we're going to start blending them together to make our next 4. And the first one is game number 4, which is the one a lot of people seem to remember because they love the idea of wiggling a rope. But you learn how to wiggle your rope and get your horse to back up. So now you're going to start influencing your horse from further away. What you've already seen is being in fairly close quarters with your horse. Now you're going to be further away from him and back him up and ask him to come forward. And what I want everyone to do is wiggle their rope so you can see the rope wiggling. Wiggle your rope more, Sarah. Yes. Because some of these girls can get their horses to move by doing almost nothing. But I want you to see where it starts. In level 1, it's really not that pretty, but it's effective. You can get your horse to move. So they've got to go back from you and then come to you. Go backwards and forwards to you. And we call it a yo-yo because if he only went backwards, that would be a yo. And if he only came forwards, that would be a yo. But you want a yo-yo. And where the yo-yo game goes to, on the ground, first of all, that you can maneuver horses much further away from you. You can stay safe if a horse is a little aggressive or something like that, because backing cures biting. If you can get a horse to back up from you, then they're less likely to bite you because this is how you win the leadership game. And you'll also see that getting them to back up is going to help us when we start to circle